Hey everyone, I'm Aaron, and this is the Undaunted Pursuit podcast, the place where bold faith meets real talk. Each week we open up God's Word, dive into life's challenges, and sit down with incredible guests who share their pursuit of Jesus. No fear, no holding back. This is Undaunted Pursuit, and the journey starts now. Okay, hey everybody, and welcome back to Undaunted Pursuit podcast. I'm glad you joined us here this week, and for our first episode of the year. And we have a very special guest, and of course, I did it again. I'm always telling you that I'm not the smartest person in the bunch, but I finally got somebody on here that is quite a bit smarter than us, and I want to welcome Mr. Jake Doberenz. Well, if I got that right. Hey, welcome,
Doberenz.
Jake.
Thanks for having me here. Quite the intro. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I went back and forth all day on. I was like, how am I going to introduce him? He's because he's a writer, he's a speaker, he's a minister, he's a coach, creative thinker. My goodness, you've got your hands in everything. So it's like, as I was thinking about this podcast, where do we start? Your post on Facebook is how we actually kind of got connected, and I was intrigued from the very get-go. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I wear a couple hats. That shows up in the bio. I do a lot of different things. I think I counted, and I have at least 5 sources of income typically happening per month. So I do a couple different things here and there. Yeah, but it's all good because I like that. I like to keep fresh. I like to do different things. You can't hold me down, I guess. I don't know. I am, man. Yeah, where to start? That is really the question. I guess I'm just kind of a storyteller, and I like to tell stories about Jesus, and that shows up in different ways in podcasts and teaching and social media ministry, if that's a thing. And then, of course, like in actual like church preaching and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's probably how I would kind of describe myself.
That kicks us off just perfectly, right? Because you're right. You mentioned something. Social media evangelism is very much a thing right now. And heck, I've even branched off and started doing a I don't even know what to call it. I call it truck cab devotionals because I drive a fuel truck for a living. So that's one of the many things that I do outside of this podcast. But one thing, I was reading through your bio, and I don't know that I can relate with the polymath side of things because I'm interested in everything and a master of none, but definitely a multi-potentialite. I am very much a multi-potentialite in the fact that there, like you said, there is not just one thing that I'm interested in because I'm interested in everything.
Yeah. There's a lot in our world that wants everybody to be a specialist, and we need specialists. We need people who that's their job. I want my doctor of whatever body part to be really good at that, kind of thing. But that's not really me, and there's so many benefits from people that like a little bit of this and like a little bit of that. They start to see connections. They can communicate across audiences really well. All sorts of great things that I like. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, it makes you relatable, especially a multi-potentialite or a polymath or a Renaissance man within ministry is very important because it allows you to connect with people who you wouldn't otherwise connect with. Correct?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, we live in a crazy world that, knowledge is rampant, but like wisdom is kind of scarce, right? And so you have people who, especially you think of young people or whatever, they're asking all these questions. They're curious. And then you have people in ministry who probably went to school for like one thing they don't know. They don't know how to talk about science. They don't know how to talk about business. They don't know how to talk about healthcare, whatever somebody is interested in. And to be clear, like even I'm going to rely on other people for some of those things. But knowing a little bit allows you to answer some of those deep questions, from a Christian perspective, from your unique position.
Yeah. And, I didn't realize that this part of the conversation would go, I guess, this deep, but I just wanted to say, there's what's the word I'm thinking of? It's a misconception that people like us are unschooled because we cannot stick to just one thing for, we get, that squirrel, kind of thing. And we get ADHD and whatever we do because that, we're interested in all these different definitely. Things. But then, I'm going to toot the horn for you. You're not that way. You have a master's of theological studies, right? And are a very well educated man. And so how was that?
Yeah, I mean, I do like education, to be clear. And like, even though I'm a polymath, I also want to have some expertise. I want people to, to think of me as this is the guy that knows about this. I'll admit that, good and bad in that. But I want to be known for some stuff. And so, theology is something I chose. Bible and theology, religion, stuff like that. I chose that to be my expertise, if you will. Because again, I felt like I could approach all the other things, but from this perspective, from this training. And so I might not be an expert on everything, but I have some expertise that allow me to kind of dip my toes into different things and talk about that intersection or whatnot. So to me, like that's important that I have a little bit of that education and expertise so that at least in one area I know what I'm talking about a little bit, sometimes, occasionally. Yeah. And then I do speak into areas that I probably don't really know what I'm talking about, but take it with a grain of salt when I'm speaking outside my areas, I guess. I don't know. But a lot of my bio that you read that we talked about is not so much different content areas, but different like methods, podcasting or teaching or preaching. Exactly. They're all different mediums that I talk about my content. Yeah.
So what came first, right? Were you a writer? Were you a speaker? Were you, what came first? How was your journey? When did you come to know Jesus? And then were you already interested in becoming a speaker even before you went into college?
Yeah, great question. I was raised in the church, kind of like probably since 2 weeks old. I was in the church building or whatever it was, kind of thing. That was in my blood. My dad owned a Christian bookstore, so I had access to a lot of Christian materials and things that probably the average Joe didn't have access to. But my first thing was a writer. Right? In fifth grade, I wrote this short story. It was about entering fifth grade for the first time. And it was about a page long. It was like 5 paragraphs. But it was just the most exciting thing I've ever done. It was just so fun to write a story. And I kind of fell in love with storytelling, with writing. Immediately, I'm in 5th grade. I'm like, all right, I'm going to write a book series based on this. We're going to do this. Like the gears start turning. And that was kind of my first love was writing, was storytelling. And a lot of that was just fun stuff, which obviously there's nothing wrong with just writing a fun story. But eventually, as I wrestled with all the different things I wanted to do, really wanted to be a biologist, scientist of some sort for a long time. I dabbled with being a lawyer. In high school, I was voted most likely to become a politician and most likely to win a Nobel Prize. Two things that I don't think they're going to happen. But hey, that's nice. that somebody thought that. So like I had all these different interests, and
Sure.
so again, like studying theology in the Bible, it just seemed to be like, if I can teach that, I can encourage somebody else to be the Christian lawyer, somebody else can be the Christian biologist, somebody else can be whatever.
Yes.
And then storytelling was kind of this fun thing, but then it also became, but I can use that also as a way to communicate, because not everybody likes a good lecture or a sermon or whatever. They might want a podcast. They might want a novel. There are other ways to communicate these truths.
What would you say comes easiest to you, right? Out of everything you've got, and I've been kind of holding off on it. You've got your own podcast and everything, but and you do this writing and you do the coaching and everything like that. What comes easier to you though? I mean, what do you just absolutely enjoy? I know you enjoy all of it, but what do you just like? I couldn't live without that.
Wow, yeah. You know, it's like I do like telling funny stories and things and kind of entertaining people. I mean, I never put all my chips in that basket because, by golly, hard to make a living writing fiction, telling stories and stuff. Like, you can, it's just really stinking hard, and there's some coincidence that comes into play of becoming Stephen King randomly or something like that. Like, okay, probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But like, a lot of my life has been, I want to do something to make money so that I can tell stories and not have to rely on that as my key income. Like, okay, I mean, I can live without telling stories and writing books, and I write plays too. I have a couple award-winning plays, even, which is not that impressive because it's just at one university I won an award. So, you know, when there's like 10 other people I was up against, right? So not that crazy, but like I like doing all that kind of stuff.
Don't shortchange it.
It just doesn't. Okay, it just doesn't pay the bills, and I still love it, and so I pursue other things to support, you know, my crazy hobby. You know, could be worse, right? Could be doing crazy stuff on the streets. Instead, I write stories.
Yeah,
that's my release.
Well. You know, I got to ask you, because I did see on the Facebook thread, somebody had asked you about getting into geeky stuff, and you had made in real short passing. And for the sake of my kids, I got to ask this question: what in the world did you do for Percy Jackson?
Yeah. So it's an academic essay that I wrote in a book. In a volume that had a bunch of different essays about Rick Riordan, who's the author of Percy Jackson, and all the universes he created and stuff like that. So I wrote a chapter that analyzed humor, horror, and kind of it's an academic discipline called monster theory. And like I looked at monsters in the Percy Jackson books and talked about how Rick Riordan kind of you know, he plays on some stereotypes, but he's also sort of making you fall in love with like these hideous, ugly monsters and things like that, using things like humor and humanizing monsters. And so I kind of paralleled that to the way that, like, in theology, like, while good and evil does exist, we have a different view of monsters. You know, if people are made in the image of God, if we're talking about like humans who might act like monsters and things of that nature. They are human. Yeah. They're not. There's nobody that's like through and through just evil to their core. Every blood cell is evil, right? And so I kind of use that as a conversation starter, talking about that. How you know, you have a Cyclops that's a kid, and you have all these different monsters that have mundane jobs or whatever. They work at these weird stores, and so through that you realize, oh yeah, they might be a monster, but there's kind of a human element. There's something relatable there.
Sure.
So yeah, that's all that stuff.
Wow, that is interesting. That is interesting. Wow, because you could go into the theology of it is That is very interesting, because I've always, I pray all the time, right? Lord, give me your eyes to see the way you see people, and everything. And even those,
Mm,
the people that we do consider monsters in any sense, within our culture nowadays, if you are
right.
looking at them through the eyes, the way God looks at them, then they are still made in his image, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, um, I wanted to kind of get into this. I've got all these sheets laid out here on different talking topics and everything, and I know I didn't really give you anything, but it's nothing out of the norm. I'm not going to ask you any questions outside of what you don't already know about your own self, and this is just kind of getting to know you a little bit. But um, you have you had listed common speaking topics that you like to talk about, and I don't want to touch on all of them, but one that really stuck out to me was why we shouldn't read the Bible like a textbook. And how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a fun one. A difficult one to chew on. Like, I don't know if I'm changing anybody's mind in the next 20 minutes or whatever, but the
Right.
the fast facts here, right? Like, so some history. When I was a kid, I mentioned my dad's Christian bookstore. It there was this view that I adopted, whether accidentally or intentionally, that the Bible was kind of this resource book for whatever problem, any problem you could
Mm-hmm.
think of. Basically, there's a chapter and there's a verse for that. And to be clear, like, I
Yeah.
believe the Bible is the inspired and authoritative word of God. To be clear, but there's a way
Amen.
of treating it like a textbook or like an encyclopedia or something where you can just
Yeah.
look up one verse and voila, there's the answer. We got it all figured out. Um, but of course, the problem was, you might have realized that some people interpret the Bible differently. Wild, right? Like, people have
Exactly.
different opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so here I am saying, well, you must be deceived by Satan, or you must be dumb or something, because I have it right, you have it wrong. Here's my list of proof texts for whatever I wanted to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so what that does is make you a prideful person, does not create a great Christ-centered spirit in your heart, for sure. And it really
Yeah.
makes you think that the whole of faith is just about finding answers to everything. And I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
tell you, there's some mystery. Then I gotta say, there's some gray areas. Like, there are some things that I like.
Yeah.
I can't say for certain what the Bible says about that or what God would say. I can apply some principles. There's some things we can do here, right? But by the time
Mm-hmm.
I got to college, um, what's really funny is, like, in college, the Bible was literally my textbook for classes. I'm a Bible major, so yes,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Gospel of Luke was assigned as homework. Go read that. Like, so it literally was my textbook. But through the process, luckily, and this doesn't happen to everybody in schools like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I found this appreciation for the person of Jesus, not just
Oh,
the
yeah.
written words on a page or something. I
Mm-hmm.
realized that what God wanted for me was way more than treating that Bible like an encyclopedia, like a textbook, and certainly like a weapon to bash people on the head with. That was not the intention. That
Right.
is not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be encountering Jesus, which is not what you do when you open up your geography textbook or your biology textbook.
Mm-hmm.
You're there for information so you can pass the test or whatever. And that's just not how
Yeah.
the Bible functions, right? The Bible is not to pass the test. And hey, you know what? I did do some, like, Bible trivia contests as a kid. I'll admit that, and I was
Yeah.
halfway decent. And that's all fun and stuff. It's good to know things about the Bible. I certainly know a lot of things about the
Mm-hmm.
Bible, but that's not the whole main point. Is to know everything about the Bible. We talk about the Bible as the Word of God, and it's not necessarily incorrect to say the Bible is the Word of God. But in, like, John 1, the Word is Jesus. Like, he is the main
Yeah.
word. the Bible is pointing to Jesus. Jesus is the center of our faith. The Bible is a way to get there, an authoritative, a good way to get there. But Jesus is the main attraction. Just always want to remind people to focus on that, because if we stop too early and stop at the Bible is the most important thing, we might accidentally miss Jesus. That's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. That what a great breakdown of that, because it does, if you do read it as a way to navigate, because God's word is a guideline, but it's a both and, right? It's not just a guideline, and you risk taking things out of context, and you do that time and time again, and now we get to where we're at as a culture and as a society today because of all that, because of this, because people have lived their lives that way. Now, tell me a little bit of this. Why don't you do apologetics anymore then? It's good. And I'm not asking that because I can see why you wouldn't, but I want to hear it from you, in your words. That was one of your speaking topics as to why I thought it would be a great transition.
It is a great transition because it's very related to what I just said, right? A worldview that says faith is all about intellectual propositions. That's kind of what apologetics ends up being. It ends up being, literally, it's not supposed to be defined this way, but people define it as like proving God, proving the Bible. We start using this proof language and things like that. And at the end of the day, proof is just intellectual propositions. I'm like, I want people to believe in God. I want people to believe in the Bible. But again, but so that they find Jesus. Like there's another part here that I need to get people to. And for me, apologetics was a worldview, was a system that, one, like I said, kind of boiled everything down to intellectualism. And it also made everything kind of us versus them. It was me. I'm 15 and I'm brilliant because I have the key that unlocks the system. That's kind of what I was told in the apologetic space. And then everybody else is wrong. That guy might, be 75 years old and have 6 PhDs, but he's wrong about everything or something like that. Like exaggeration. But that was this idea that I was right, everybody else is wrong. There wasn't a lot of room for dialogue. It was instead debate. And I think when we approach everything like that, when you approach things with war language, everything becomes like a war. And I'm not saying that there isn't any truth to war, in a sense, but spiritual warfare is very different than, again, we go back to the monsters thing. Hey man, everything ties together really nicely. It's really good. To go back to the monster thing, it
does.
Those monsters aren't purely evil. If I turn everybody who disagrees with me into a monster, there's not any productive conversation, because I don't have to talk to a monster. But if I start seeing them as human, if I start seeing them as, we disagree, or there's some flaw here or whatever, like if I start realizing this is just another guy, another person, another image of God, everything shifts, and I can start listening. I can start being honest about where I struggle, which most people will appreciate that level of honesty instead of complete certainty on everything. It just changes the conversation. I just think we get back to Jesus way better. So I'm not against the discipline of, hey, there's some reasons why we know the Bible is true on these things or whatever. That's fine and all. But when you make that your life, and it was my life as a kid, that's what I was eating and drinking and breathing, apologetics. Yeah. It made me a worse person. It just did. And it made me lose touch with what faith was supposed to be about. And that's not good.
It makes you confrontational rather than relational, right? So now what it does, and I'm glad you went there. I was happy to hear that your opinion on it, because it's exactly what I was thinking it is, what we're trying to do as Jesus followers is to create relationships with others to lead them to the ultimate relationship that we should all have with Jesus. And we can't do that constantly confronting people in that manner.
Oh yeah, 100%. Exactly. It's a priority shift that we need to make, to be about those relationships and not about beating people up or proving them wrong kind of thing. Yeah, not good.
And you see that, right? That's why a lot of these debates, and I guess debates are healthy, but I think a lot of people, they go into it too hot-headed, and it turns people off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have done, and I've been on an atheist hosted podcast to kind of, defend the faith, if you will. There were some nice moments. There were some moments where this guy was not representing me well. There were some moments where I probably could have kept my cool a little bit because your blood starts boiling. But then at the end of the day, when I reflected on doing that podcast, I realized I don't think that made the world better at all. Nobody benefited from that.
Right.
I didn't feel good. Maybe he felt good and thought he was like winning, but he didn't have the truth. So is that really winning? Like, it's like nobody benefited from that. And so it's like, I wouldn't do that today if I were invited on an atheist podcast to like debate Christianity or whatever. No.
Yeah. And and it's like, I don't feel like I have to, right? I don't feel like I have to go out on college campuses and do these debates and stuff. Like, God doesn't need defending. He defends himself. And, what am I going to do?
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, for 100%. Yeah.
So what do we do? What is, for one, here's what I want to do. There was one topic that you listed that I, simple-minded Aaron don't understand. What is culture war Christianity and the problems associated with it? Because I'm asking honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just start by saying, like, everybody has different definitions for terms. Culture war isn't my favorite term because it can kind of mean different things to different people. But when I use it, I'm talking similarly about that apologetics worldview or about that Bible as a textbook. Everything's kind of, we got a thread going on here. Everything's related. Like a culture war is just saying, like, our mission is to win the culture back for Jesus. And so we need this political position in place. We need these key figures in these positions of power. We need it. Like, it's like it's like a agenda kind of view of the faith where if we just do this, God will be happy with us or whatever. And I'm like, no, that is a little bit closer to like Pharisee level thinking. One of the reasons that the Pharisees didn't like Jesus is because he was doing it wrong. Just like talking to poor people and hanging out with the enemy, the Romans and the tax collectors. Yeah. And then what's that? He's like hanging out with prostitutes and bleeding women and lepers. Like, he's breaking the script, right? Because the Pharisees had this view of like, oh, the Messiah won't come until we get this nation back together. We do X, Y, and Z, and we got to tithe this way and that. And they missed Jesus. And I am scared that we are missing Jesus today because we have a view of this is what we're supposed to do. We got to win the culture. And to be clear, like, I want to influence culture. I tell stories. Some of them don't have the Christian label on them, and I want people to positively be benefited by those stories. That's an element of culture creating. You have a podcast. I have a podcast. That's culture creating. But it's a whole different story if we want to win and beat everybody else up and take it over. Again, that's not what builds relationships, is winning.
Right.
When a nation conquers another nation, I would say very rarely the conquered nation is like, thanks, guys. We really appreciate it. Maybe, there could be some liberating circumstances, but that's not
Sure.
what really wins people over to your side 9 times out of 10. And our goals are just different. So culture war Christianity says, we gotta win, we gotta do this, and our goals are tangible, are something that you can mark with a law, or with a key leader saying this, or every time like a football player gives it to Jesus, we got this one, we got another football player that has John 3:16 painted on his cheek or whatever. It's like, that's not our goals. That's nice. Like, I mean, that's cool, but that's not the goalpost. That's not the end. The end is transformation of individuals, and guess what? That takes a long time. It takes inefficient means. It's not going to be glamorous at all to change lives. People don't make movies about the little things or whatever, but that's actually what does it. Yeah. So that's my soapbox.
Yeah, I love it because there were several thoughts going on while you were talking there, and it was now I got to back up because I really didn't want to interrupt you there, but
yeah,
it gets to be a point of where we're so focused on that and on what you were saying that we get it becomes a competition, right? Even in Christian circles, my ministry, and if you get in my way, then I'm going to run you over. And instead of we forget that we are all on the same team, that we are all trying to impact culture in a way that glorifies Jesus rather than this competition Christianity. I guess that would be that's you could reword that as competition Christianity, right?
Okay, I like it. Yeah, I like it.
No, I don't know. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So, on top of all this, and in avoidance of making this too terribly long, and I wanted to go into, and like the idea of what we do on here also is kind of give you a chance to kind of plug yourself and what you're doing. I noticed that on your website you have you have one podcast listed, and on when you were listing, are you hosting 2 different podcasts, or what are you currently working on?
Yeah, great question. The answer is my website is out of date and needs to be updated. My podcast has actually had 3 names, so it's the same podcast. I just keep changing the name.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm sticking with this one, hopefully. But my main show right now is called Christianity Without Compromise. It had a couple different names, but that's what we're doing. And then my associated newsletter is called Smashing Idols, which used to be the name of the podcast as well. So that's a lot of my public ministry is all in there. But I mean, to answer your question, the thing is, one of my day jobs, one of my hats is podcast producer. So I help people create all sorts of different random shows, and I pop up all over the place. So yeah, I have like one podcast that's kind of my baby, but I'm all over, doing all different things in podcast land and all the other lands too, right? All those hats, right? We covered that.
Well, hopefully I don't let you down on this. This is all me right here. It's all produced and hosted by me, and I am obviously no professional, but been doing this for a little while, so you got any? Do you do any public speaking? Have you been doing any of that lately?
Not much beyond Oklahoma City area ish where I'm located. But I do preach about once a month at a church, a little tiny church, not the church I attend. But they bring me in different kind of churches without full-time ministers will bring me in occasionally. So I do a lot of like guest preaching kinds of things. Since I don't have like,
Yep.
I'm not on full-time staff at a church, I can kind of pop wherever you need me to be and
Yeah.
give the message and do that kind of thing. So that's mostly the speaking I do
That's cool.
nowadays is preaching on Sundays. Yeah, it is fun.
That's the season that I'm in, right? I do the same thing. Just whenever you get wind of somebody asking you to go preach at a church that doesn't have a pastor, and I can relate with you on that one.
Yeah, nice. Hey, it's fun. It can be fulfilling.
Oh man, I love it. I find myself wanting more of it. It's just it's fun. It is. I love it. But
yeah,
you working on any new books lately? Any books, fiction, nonfiction, whichever?
Yeah, I'm kind of working on a nonfiction book. I've mentioned it a lot of places, but it's still not like very material. It hasn't really materialized much. I haven't written a lot of it. But kind of my next project that I want to push is about efficiency and how that can become a kind of idol. We can focus so much on the process and the optimization, and then we miss out on Jesus and the good things. And I already talked about, how Jesus did things very slowly and kind of inefficiently. And I'm a huge fan of John 11 and the story of Lazarus because it's so wild to me. They're like, hey, Lazarus is sick. Jesus is like, cool, let me just chill out here for a couple days. And then Lazarus dies. And everybody's like, what? You could have healed him. Like, you didn't do the efficient thing. You're not doing what we expected. But God wants to do something amazing by taking these paths and things that aren't, efficient or easy or what we would expect. So that's kind of my next project. Hoping to pick up a traditional publisher for that and different things. Podcasting is a great way to get connected with cool people. A lot of times people with books. And so, leveraging some of those connections to make stuff happen. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, that I think that pretty much summarizes everything that I wanted to talk about. And I love that you had the opportunity to come on here. Thank you for gracing us with your presence on my channel here, and it's good. I would love to discuss things further and just keep up with you and find out what's going on. Of course, I'm going to have everybody put. I'm going to put all your links in the show notes here, but just quickly before we get off here. Tell people where they can find you. How can they support you in any way possible if they wanted to, or even I don't even know if you're available. If somebody needed a speaker, just tell us about that.
Well, yeah, it never hurts to ask me about what I'm available to do, and I'll try not to just say yes to everything, have some wisdom and all that, but I like new opportunities, right? I like doing stuff, so.
Sure.
Exactly. The main place that I want to send people is my Substack. So it's just jakedoberenz.substack.com. First and last name.substack.com. That's where I try to hang out and build an audience and do a lot of stuff. My podcast comes out on Tuesday. That's Christianity Without Compromise. And then on Friday, I come out with a newsletter called Smashing Idols. That's a written reflection. So Tuesday's podcast, audio. Friday is I write something that will benefit you spiritually. And so that's where I love to send people, because that's mostly where I hang out and build kind of my more thoughtful content. Not that like social media isn't as thoughtful, but let's be real. Like, they're in 2 sentences, I can't capture my theology on whatever, right? Like, go to the longer form stuff. That's where you can find me. And, when you're trying to publish books and stuff, the publishers do like you to have some nice numbers on the newsletter. So go subscribe and all that fun stuff. That would be real helpful. So that's what I'll say, Aaron. That's all I need to promote.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, there's no conflict there. All of my stuff comes out on either a Wednesday or a Thursday. Don't ask me. There's no rhyme or reason why that happens. It's just the way it happens. So there's so there you go. Now at least our audience here on Undone Pursuit can go listen to you if they want to keep this conversation going, right? I'm sure I'm sure I haven't listened to yours. I listen to so many podcasts throughout the week. It's hard to catch up with everybody's podcast.
Sure.
But I'm sure you get into some really good theological discussions, and I want to encourage all of my listeners here to go check you out. Check out the Christianity Without Compromise podcast, and of course, all them links will be in the show notes. So, dude, thank you for taking time out of your day to visit with me. And like I said, I don't know what led us together other than God and the intriguing post that you put out on Facebook. So
glad to be intriguing. Appreciate being on here so much, Aaron. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I wish you the best of luck and anything that you're doing, and of course, hopefully,
thanks.
My people that listen into this can go check you out and show you some support, and that'd be great. So, guys, go check them out. Jake, thank you for being on. If you'll just hang tight, we'll close this out, and then we'll go do our thing. So, guys, thanks for listening to Undaunted Pursuit podcast. I'm glad you joined us here this week, and we'll see y'all next time. Hey, thank you for joining us on the Undaunted Pursuit podcast this week, where faith meets real life. Stay bold, stay faithful, and keep chasing after Jesus. Don't forget, follow us on social media. Like, subscribe, rate, whatever you got to do. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube especially. Check that out. We love all the support that you give us, and we want you to continue supporting us. Share this episode with somebody this week. That you, the listener, are what makes this all possible. And, as we go through this, we need your support, both by sharing episodes and monetarily. Be looking in the show notes for any pertinent links to where you can support us financially, where you can support our guests, where you can support the music that's used at the end of this. We just encourage you to follow and like anybody that is on here, because we're all under the same mission, and that's to spread the gospel of Jesus. If you guys want to reach out, send us an email at undauntedpursuit@gmail.com. Until next time, keep pursuing.